And one thing that me and you have talked about a lot is like open mouths get fed. Just ask for more, because nobody's going to say to you like I've never experienced in business that when you ask for something, if you're polite about it, if you go about it the right way, nobody says like not only no, but literally lose my email, right? It doesn't happen, right? Like it is so difficult for people to be punitive, but sometimes people are just not thinking about things the way you are. So when you ask for exactly what you want, sometimes you give them the opportunity to tell you what they want and you guys meet in the middle.
I'm Brandon Reed, and you're listening to Ready, Set, Startup, a podcast that brings you industry-tested perspectives from leaders working in all areas of the startup lifecycle, so you can learn from the wisdom that they've gained over years in their fields of expertise and apply it in your own entrepreneurial journeys. Let's get into it. On today's show, I'm talking with Bryan Barletta, founder of Sounds Profitable. After years working in podcasting and seeing what he felt were obvious gaps keeping the industry from thriving as he knew it could, Bryan decided to do something drastic, start a company to fix what he felt was broken. It takes a bold set of actions to lift an entire space collectively, but that's exactly what his company is doing. I've been in podcasting for several years now, and I can tell you that what Bryan and his team are doing at Sounds Profitable is shifting fundamentally what it looks like to run a podcast as a business. You can't attend a conference without someone talking about the great work that they're doing over there. So, as you can imagine, I was super pumped when he agreed to sit down and talk me through how it all started, what they're doing to accomplish their mission, and what he sees as the vision for its future. Every topic he covers in our discussion is packed full of takeaways that founders in any industry can put into practice. Up first, we talk about the start to his entrepreneurial journey that began as so many other great ones do, getting fired.
So that's the truth of it. I'm 39 years old. I was 22 when I moved to New York, maybe 23, I think. And it was right in the boom of mobile apps, right? And I worked in the advertising space there. And every friend I made, everybody I met there was just like, what's your big idea? What's going to be your own company? When are you going to do your own thing? And I was like, I like being the number two. Like I like being the right-hand man. And through a lot of my career, I think what I learned was that like the first half of my career, I got fired a lot because I'd be like, that's broken. And as I got older, I was like,
saying that.
Yeah, you can't say that out loud unless you have a fix for it. Like just put your head down and get to work or fix it, right? And then the second part of my career, I think I got fired for saying that's broken, I'm going to fix it without like evaluating the whole purpose of it, right? Yeah. The last job, the job that I had right before this, and the reason why I decided to start Sounds Profitable was I was the senior product manager of data and monetization at Megaphone. And I'd been there for 9 months before they let me go because my team was responsible for the ad server. And it would be like easily Wednesday. My team had almost worked 60 hours by that point. And so I was like, I need to rewrite this ad server. Like we can't like slow down on this. We got all of our other work done, but we were doing triage. We weren't being paid overtime. And so I just started working on it. And they're like, you got to slow down. I was like, no, I'm definitely not doing that. Like this was part of what you brought me on for. And then they let me go. And then they were acquired by Spotify, which, you can't sell a house while someone's ripping up a carpet. So I was kind of thrust into it, right? The jobs that I was looking for, I wasn't super relevant in the space. Like I wasn't a known entity. The people who knew me, we had great relationships. I was a product manager. I was a technical account manager, sales engineer, solutions architect, that type of role. And I would get interviewed and the salaries were less. They wanted me to move from my remote position. And they wanted me to jump through all these hoops. So I just started writing about the space. And what snowballed from a newsletter/blog about ad tech and podcasting into a trade association. I mean, it's the end of May, we're recording this, and September is 5 years for us. We just crossed 200 partners, right? The momentum has just been crazy. And so every day I'm grateful for it, but I don't think I set out to do any of it. I think I turned to my wife and I was like, I want to give this a shot. I don't know what it is, but I think there's something there, and I think it's going to be more rewarding than me just getting the first job offered to me and we having to sell our house and move.
Yeah, I mean, you say you stumbled into it, but you don't. There's a lot of intentionality there. You could have absolutely gone and gotten another job, but you said, "Hey, I have a perspective here, something to share," and you just started sharing it. And so you say you stumbled into it, which I feel like is a lot of people's story, but there's a lot of intention with your next step, it sounds like, to say this is something, that I have, like I say, a perspective on, and you wanted to share it, and it sounds like it started resonating with people right away. It sounds like you also started it by yourself, right? There was no
Yeah.
co-founders?
Yeah, I mean, James, I would like to give credit to like James Cridlin and Evo Terra for like helping support it. I mean, if it wasn't for James giving me the platform and saying like what Brian's saying is important and people should be paying attention to it, I don't think it would have taken off like it did. And the first partners that we worked with, the partners are what we call like our membership base at Sounds Profitable. Paul Rismandel was at Midroll, which was acquired by Stitcher, which was acquired by SiriusXM and all that, and like. Those people bought in Pod Sites, which was acquired by Spotify, and all of these companies bought into us. Even Megaphone eventually became a partner, and then Spotify and all of that. They added legitimacy to it. So, Evo Terra helped me with the content, the vision, like how we got it out there. James Cridlin gave me the platform, but it was my company. I mean, I was the one handling every aspect of like what the idea is, all the way to how do I sell it to somebody, and how do we bill for it.
And why did you decide to go about it without a co-founder? I mean, with somebody with expertise that either complemented yours or stuff, perspective you didn't have, industry experience you didn't have, why'd you go about it alone?
I think that the journey I had, like one of the big things that we decided to do as we built it, or I guess I decided to do, was that we wouldn't take equity advisory board seats, commission, or kickback, and we won't manage our personal and family finances. Like a trade association usually are nonprofits or not-for-profits. I don't really want to jump through those hoops. I'm not particularly interested in a board. We don't have investors or anything like that. So for me, the idea of pulling somebody into it, they needed to be someone who had the same level of integrity and goals and willing to take that risk, because at that point it was entirely unproven.
Hard to
find.
I think
I met I met a lot of people who I think could have been great for it, but they needed a paycheck. They needed money, and I couldn't do
Turns
that.
out
right?
people need paychecks to work,
Yeah, but I mean, like I also wasn't getting it too,
Right.
and I was very generous with like we could have figured out like equity, and we could have figured out like part ownership and all those things there. And a lot of the people like I considered, I don't think they would have been pure additive, but it took 2-3 years. I mean, I guess 2 years into it, because Tom Webster now has been with us for 3 years. But when I took a swing on that, like Tom does, like we have almost no overlap. And my opening bid to him was like, you're going to add legitimacy to our company. You're going to add research. You're going to add stage presence. You're going to add 30 years of reputation and all of that. It's like, here, my opening offer was half the company. And so that was so great there. And like 3 years into it, like our overlap is so little. Like he kills it on stage, and he makes jokes about me like putting him back in his cryo chamber. And it's like 49% joke, right?
Yeah,
like he kills it on stage. He does his extrovert stuff for a little bit, and then he goes and gets what he needs out of it. And he's the big thinker on the team. But yeah, I think I'd never met anybody who was bought into the idea, who didn't consistently want to challenge me on it, and also didn't want a paycheck. And there were some people that I tried to partner with that did go down the equity advisor or board seat role, because that's valuable. I mean, there's a handful of companies that offered me equity that I absolutely will be kicking myself on when they sell, but like it compromises it. I can't recommend the best solution for a partner when I have, the responsibility to recommend somebody that I have equity in. So
yeah. That makes total sense. And you're right. It's a different fit for different kinds of businesses, different kinds of founders in the situation that they each find themselves in. And it sounds like you knew early on that your direction was the one that was right for you. And so you're building your business. You're doing it on your own, but with partners that are obviously coming alongside you and making it all happen. That makes total sense. Every business has champions that helps it get started. And so as you're doing that, you mentioned the idea of partners, and you don't have to get all the way into your business model, but like, how did you start getting in front of the people that were going to start paying you and make this a legitimate business first? Did you start with actually like typical marketing channels? Was it word of mouth? Was it referral? How did that start?
COVID, I think, was the great equalizer, right? Like we started in August 2020, September 2020 was the official launch, but everybody was home. Everybody was willing to take a meeting. It's so funny to look at my days now where I do literally 8 hours of meetings 3 to 4 days a week, like nonstop. I used to shave my head because it's thinning just a little bit in the front, and no human should look at themselves that much, right? And so like, it's just so much on that end, but anybody would take a call, right? That was what was really neat. Anybody would take a call. And I knew enough people, and I was getting introductions and connections from people, and they were also reading what I was writing in Pod News. And it was stuff people weren't talking about. The difference between a download, a listen, and a stream, how attribution works, how geo-targeting works, all of these things that we were just kind of taking for granted that we were like, it works, we can sell it. And I was trying to re-explain it. And I think originally I thought I was trying to explain it to the entry-level people that we weren't catching up. I quickly realized it was to the mid-level and even the executive level. Some of these people had raised money and were running companies and didn't understand these basic things that I thought were critical to the space. And so a lot of it is like organic. We've never done paid marketing. We did PR for about 6 months and it was not useful. I think, our model is $500 a month. We haven't changed the price since we started. We don't do contracts unless somebody requires it. It's a 3-month commitment, and that's just like a verbal agreement. We just let a partner out of it on that end because they were hitting financial troubles. Like I'm not going to be the reason someone doesn't hit payroll. And just the ease of that has made it so that when we announced a new partner, their peers and competitors reach out. They say, well, that's really interesting. Would like to learn more about all these people you work with, why they've been working with you for so long, and why this specific company is there. And so it was a lot of direct introductions. It was a lot of the visibility of being on Pod News, and just that everybody was available at a level that I don't think anybody will ever be available again. It was right place, right time.
Yeah, that's cool. And again, you're downplaying your role in it, and I think the value that you guys bring. You're saying right place, right time, but I don't know, Bryan. I think that there's anybody will take a call, and COVID being the great equalizer, anybody will take a call. That makes a lot of sense. But when you get on that call and you start communicating your vision for this company, what you would offer as a partner, you have to be bringing value and prove that value. And I think you guys did that really early on. You're welcome. And you earned that. And we've worked together for a while, and right away when we started working together, the value was clear. And so it made sense to work with you. And so you had to clearly outline what you guys as a company did, the value you bring, what you offer, what you bring to the table. And that stuff is hard to do, man. There's so many companies that fail because they can't do that. Even before the bringing of the value, but communicating the value they can offer. They just can't effectively do that. And so you guys clearly did that stuff well.
It's funny. I think that still to this day, like there's so many people that I meet and they say, I think I misunderstand what you guys do. Because it's easy to like, people are like, oh, we think you're everything you do is ads.
I can see that.
And it's like, okay, well, like, look, with 6 issues of the newsletter talking about business of podcasting, the most visible thing out there is ads, right? Ad revenue is the easiest thing to report on. It's the most visible. It shows the size and growth of a space. Goalhanger at the podcast show London with Apple released the numbers of subscribers that they have for some of their for their subscription offering. But now we don't know the next, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We don't know where that ranks against the US. We don't know the difference in global. There's so many variables there. So when I say monetization, but all I talk about is ads, people pigeonhole us on that. When we think about, how we help people out there, if we can lean down where they're spending money, or if I can share examples of things that they're trying to do and what people publicly have succeeded or not, I think that's all great. I think we've never been able to get the pitch right. And so more and more when I get on a call, I'm like, well, let's just dive into a consulting. We got a half an hour anyways. Like, what do I lose? Like, this isn't if you come on as a partner, I'm not going to count this against here, but like, let me show you how in 3 months, we're going to provide you over $6,000 worth of value so that you become one of the partners that's been with us for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think that's so interesting. Your business is doing something that, in podcasting, which, a lot of my listeners know that I come from podcasting. That's what has been my business for a while, big part of it. And that's how we got to know each other. And as I've gotten to know the industry, there's so many questions that people are asking, so many gaps that are had that people, of course, didn't know the answer to, but didn't even know how to articulate the question. Like they knew there were issues. They knew that they were having trouble with their podcast and that everybody was thinking the same thing, but nobody was saying it out loud and couldn't form. And you guys started just coming in there and asking those questions and then demanding solutions for it and then being a part of those solutions. I mean, like, how do we make this better for the industry as a whole, lifting everybody? And I think it's been super effective and cool to see across the industry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's neat and it's exciting. And I think that the reason why, like, hopefully me being humble on this stuff and downplaying it isn't dishonest, because like,
Sure,
we don't have a contract. Like at any time, like if your credit card bounces, like you might not give me a new one, right? Like, and like, honestly, like we don't get to connect as often as we do. And like, we're talking about all these things and like, you give such great compliments to like the ideas that I give you, but like ideas are a dime a dozen. Your execution is what matters. So I never take these things for granted. And oftentimes we do these things where I'm like, this is right. And I'm risking the company on it. iOS 15 happened and Apple started inflating downloads. There was a bug, and every company that they talked to individually that brought it up to them, they're like, it's not really an issue. We're looking into it, but it's not really an issue. And then 2 years later, almost, we got everybody together and we were like, hey, this is an issue. We dug into it with data. Are you seeing this? Are you collaborating with this? Like, are you, when we brought it to Apple and I tried to present it from how Apple would want to see it, I was like, this is a security risk. I can fingerprint your users on that end. And then they kind of went silent. And so I was like, well, hey, let's everybody get ahead of it. Let's start working on it. Let's bring it to the IAB. Let's figure out how we can identify this issue and if Apple makes a change or if we need to make a change, we can prepare for it. And then one day we all wake up and Apple's like, hey, Bryan, thanks for your help on this. We just released the fix. And I'm like, oh no. Like, and then we had to do damage control and say it publicly and make a statement. And some of our partners could get buy-in to have their logo on it and some couldn't, but all of them supported us. But when we made that statement, I think that's when, and that was 2 years ago now, right? That's when we became a trade association. When we said a statement on behalf of the industry, this is what people need to know. And we helped make sure that the narrative wasn't blown out. That like, by making that statement, by admitting to the public that downloads were going to be reduced because they were inflated, we were expecting a bunch of people to drop and they didn't. And it was really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I started taking us down the industry track there, but I want to take us back to you building this business as you were kind of early on. There's a pivotal point for startups, for new companies where that you're keenly aware of as you built yours, that you're like, okay, we have some traction, we have some product market fit, we have customers. Now we need more people to help grow this thing. And people are hard. It's hard to find good people. So at what point did you know that you were hitting that fork in the road that, okay, I need to bring other people on? And then how'd you go find them?
So we're a 4-person team at this point. And so, Tom being, and we've fluctuated on that, but I think Gavin Gaddis, on our head of content, that role, we had someone else, Ian Powell, handle similar before that, and even Evo Terra. That role was like, how do I vomit this idea out there? How do we identify all the other things we want to talk about and make sure that it is edited, it makes sense, it is where someone's challenging it so that I can be stronger in how it's presented, and then it gets out there. So that was probably the first role that we filled, and it ranged from, I think someone with more experience than necessary on that wanted like a bigger role and that didn't work out there, to someone a little bit too junior on it with no industry experience that didn't work. And then now with Gavin, Gavin was an industry critic, right? Like would do podcast reviews and loved the space, but couldn't get purchased and get a foot in the door. And it was just right place, right time. Gavin started as someone, I was looking for someone to be like an assistant, to just be on my calls before all these AI note takers, to just do my follow-up. And Gavin did that. And then I was like, well, why don't you just take this article and get it live for me? Why don't you do this thing? Why don't we try another newsletter and you write it in your voice? And I don't think when you hire someone, like you'll ever find someone you're going to be completely comfortable with giving them anything that's yours. But I found comfort in watching Gavin grow. And I realized the things that Gavin did that I didn't like were things that were preference, not integrity, not presentation. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't totally a risk. Then we've had operations. Manuela was there before, Lauren is there now. And that, that's been an interesting one there too, because operations, I think until very recently, I've been very precious of it, right? Like I want this person to effectively run the house, because I think the longer the company runs, like, I don't know if I'm the right CEO. I'm a founder. right? I'm going to be able to drive it forward. I'm going to do all of that. But like, there's some like bigger level thinking. There's some like making sure everything's clean and set and organized that I'd love someone to do that. And I would say until very recently, I didn't treat myself as the product, because that's the truth. I mean, like I do consulting with every single one of our partners. So I would be like, no, I can't ask them to help me schedule my meetings at an event, because that feels bad to me. This is an operations person. But when I finally leaned into it and I got the support, you realize you have the right person there when they're just like, yep, I can do it. We can figure it out. This is the issue. This is the thing we need to work on. And they challenge you on that. And then Tom was someone I admired in the space, and it was just a swing. I don't think there was like a spot in the company for Tom. I think Tom joining basically took just grew the company in a brand new direction. But we've tried to hire for other things, and it's tough. I think that it's so much personality based, and I think I would love to hire more and all of that. But some of those things I look at and I'm like, well, what happens if we just offer more benefits, keep the price the same, and then just realize that there's some things I'm going to be able to do less of, and see if that works before bringing somebody else in and training them up or making sure that they can fit in those gaps.
And those are all levers that, as a founder and a business owner, you can pull of like, yeah, where do we scale back our service? Where do I get less involved? Where do I get more involved? When do we bring people on? And those are just hard levers to know which to pull and when. And it sounds like you've been able to keep your team really lean, which is a very hard thing to do. I think a lot of time in startups, people think, can even evaluate success of startups by how many employees do you have. But the more and more I get involved in this space and talk to founders, it feels more like the badge of honor is like, how lean can you stay? Like how few people can you get, not only cooks in the kitchen, but just like, yeah, it's hard to manage people and it complicates things. And so if you can keep small, stay small, and that can be really valuable. This question, I was gonna skip past it because it doesn't feel as applicable for you, but I'm actually curious to hear your answer, just to hear you define how you position yourself in the space. It's that, how would you differentiate yourself, or how did you differentiate yourself as you were building this business from industry incumbents, from like other people doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
And you're so unique that it's not a typical, you're not creating another widget and there's 10 other companies creating the same type of widget. But how did you kind of introduce yourself to the industry and say, here's why we'd be accretive to what you're doing, and not just more of the same? How'd you position yourself as somebody that should come on as a partner?
Yeah, I explained to them that, the podcast industry, no matter how big it is, doesn't have the budget for so many different things, right? Like recently I found out that I think sponsorship for like, no matter what it is, how cool it is, $10,000 is where people start to get nauseous. Anything over that, it doesn't matter
crazy.
how much value it is. Something about that number in podcasting, you can shave a lot of stuff off to get to $10,000 and stuff, and people are comfortable with it, but you can't 4x the value and even do $15,000. It hits some sort of gag reflex.
Interesting.
I think that what I said was, we're really inspired by what the IAB, the Interactive Advertising Bureau, can do for an emerging market. And I think they fell short in podcasting. I think what their big thing is saying, we have all of you in all these other markets, come join this new one and make it big. And podcasting was just tough. It was tough. Google said, we're not going to do our attribution pixel or measurement in there. You can't buy through ads through us in there until recently now, but only through YouTube and all those things. So not a lot of people followed over. So when the IAB's big value is we have 10 spots and there's 100 people fighting for that spot to be visible, that's what drives the value. In podcasting, it was like 6 people saying, why am I paying $60,000 to be on stage to invite brands that I know to come attend this upfront? And so what we did, we were able to challenge some of that. At $6,000 a year, we're half the price of the lowest tier at the IAB. And IAB is scaled based on your revenue. Amazon and YouTube pay the same as you do, right? And there's no way for them to pay more on that partnership or have any more priority. And then the other part was Media Link, which I always admired, this idea of this well-connected network that could help on the consultative nature to help people close advertising deals and all of that. But we don't take commission or kickback. We don't charge $500,000 a year. It's $500 a month. So it's like Media Link, but the expectations are lower.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I differentiate it. And then as we looked into having these events and stuff, I just stopped charging extra for things. right? Like we just did a 60-person event in LA to talk about the impact of Spotify video. And it was like a really great event. I absolutely could have charged for tickets for it. But to me, everybody who was in the room was the product. It was a workshop. It was a conversation. It wasn't a panel. Everybody there was experts. So I just said, you just had to be a partner or a brand. And 60 people came out. Half of them flew out to LA for this, awesome. Which was like me monologuing for 2 hours. So I just look at these things. And I think that what really differentiated us was my goal is as many partners as possible at $500 a month instead of 10 people at $100,000 a year or selling tickets to these things. If everything I do creates value and value creates FOMO and one or two new partners come from that, then that expense is worth it. Then that effort is worth it. Or if it just holds retention. So I think everything we do is break even is the win in the first 2 years, South by Southwest, all of those things. So I think that was our big differentiator. Like we weren't coming to the table and saying, if you spend money with us, we can expand research into Europe. If you spend money with us, we can go get brands there. I said, we got an event, brands are there, you're a partner, you're invited.
Yeah, I love that. And that there's a simplicity to that makes a lot of sense, a lot of logical sense. You mentioned this earlier, that there was a lot of points in your company that were risky bets that you had to take as you were growing, that you weren't sure if it paid off or not. Can you think of one of those, of a time in the company where you thought, all right, this is risky, but I'm going to take this step, and did it pay off or not? What did you learn in that situation?
South by Southwest, the first year that we did something there, it was $150,000 that we signed just to like have a whole day. And we signed it with
that's past like, that $10,000 threshold.
A little bit, yeah, but that was us. Like we bought that, and then we managed to get 4 sponsors at $30K. So we only lost $30K ourselves, but we put together a full day of the business of podcasting. 200 people came out, and that risk, like we signed that knowing full well that like it might fail. Like we might not get sponsors, we might eat that whole cost, but is the visibility worth it? Will it pay off? And Tom and I would talk about it. Like we have yet to fall flat on our face, and I'm expecting it any day now, right? But that's why I keep reducing the price for things, and I keep adding more value because I want to lower expectations. I always want to have low expectations and over deliver. But the South by was a great example. We literally signed a contract, and we had 6 months to get as close to that $150,000 as possible. But that success led to us being able to get a sponsorship for last year and now next year, or this year and now next year, at half that price with way more value. We proved to them what we're going to be able to do and how it's going to work. So that, I think that the public stance about Spotify recently, I encourage the entire space not to use Spotify video if you're a podcaster, and really revisit it. And I sent an email to Spotify asking them if I could be invited to their party at Cannes Lion. And as of now, they're not interested in having me there. And so, there's a lot, there's a lot of things like that where you have to like make the decision. And, we started to realize that like at the size of our company, if we're the trade association for podcasting, where do you draw the line on, is this the Bryan and Tom Club? And we completely disagree with you as a company and like your content and things like that, even though you're a major podcast company, but we don't do we exclude you? And, this week we onboarded a partner that some people are not happy about, but they're a major podcast company and their content, which can be offensive, but here's the truth of it. We don't platform content. We don't bring talent to our event. Conan O'Brien's not coming to my event. So, I don't need to worry about that. But these people have such volume, and the business is aligned between them and their other counterparts in the space and us, that their weight matters in those negotiations with Spotify and Apple and YouTube and showing a unified presence. So those are all things that like any day, I feel like Tinkerbell sometimes. Like I exist because everybody believes in us, and people are like, they say that's it's great. So fun. They're like, thank you for being so valuable. It's like, if you stop reading, if you stop believing I'm valuable, I'm no longer valuable. And I come across so many people with opinions, and I think it's about presentation, right? Like I think that's really it. I try and say like, this is my experience, this is my suggestion. I'd love to hear from you. Right? Like help me understand where I'm right or wrong here before I make a decision, or can I share my experience? But remember, my entire company is built off the fact that I am doing something that shouldn't have worked and other people said wouldn't work, but it's a different time and I'm a different person than them. So it's worth trying again. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about You've established a company, you're starting to build it, you're growing. Let's talk about that scaling, because that's again another fork in the road that startups hit, where they have to grow. We talked about adding people, and there's a lot of growing pains involved. As you do that, you need to start positioning yourself to for more and more opportunities. South by Southwest was a great one. It's like, hey, I went to South by Southwest, and it was awesome to see podcasting as a whole section. I mean, you go through the app, and you're like, what am I interested in? I'm interested in film. I'm interested in music. Oh, am I interested in podcasting? I mean, it was a representation of that entire industry, and that's a huge moment for you guys, for the industry, to lift everybody, as we were talking about. How do you get yourself to the table for those pivotal moments of like, how do you even get the conversation to say like, hey, South by Southwest, we'll put on a day and we'll take a room. How are you making sure that you are in the right conversations to take these steps that can help you scale as a company?
Yeah, I'm trying to think on South by like where that came from. I think I met the sales guy, Jason, at a podcast movement event. And because we had our lounge there, so we tend to have the lounges where our partners can hold meetings and just have a guaranteed space to have a meeting in a private area. And I think that's where I met Jason, and we started talking about it. And I think it's just momentum. Like I look at these things and these people are just like, well, if we get the right interest, we could do this. And I was like, I'll take it. And it's just like, how do you say to that person, like, let's move forward, right? Like Pod Show London, for example, we had an awesome time there, and we spent £25,000 this year on our sponsorship. And before the event, they sent an email that was just like, hey, if you'd like to renew for the same rate, let us know. And I said, I'll take it. And they're like, well, we cut you a deal. And I was like, you cut me a deal every year, right? Every single year you cut me a deal, and it's last minute. I have no more last minute money. Let's sign this contract now for next year, and I'll help you make more money for where you think you lost money because of me. And so I think it's just coming in there and then realizing, like, figuring out who to talk to. And sometimes it's the salespeople. And I think the first couple of years, I tried to convince the salespeople why they should like buy into my unique business idea. And then the second half, I was just like, how much? Like, let's figure it out. Okay, if I buy more, how much cheaper? Oh, cool. It's $15,000 per day for a social media package. Drop that. But yeah, I think it's, in my opinion, I think if you're visible and people can vouch for you, that's one thing, right? And I think that we started to do that. We had so many partners and logos. We had those spaces in established areas in podcasting. And then it's salespeople. And it's not trying to convince the salespeople on why they should do something unique. It's how you help them hit their number. And it's last minute stuff too. I think that everything costs 4 times as much if you have a year notice. And like 4 weeks before South by this year, like we were the lead sponsor on the podcast stage 4 weeks before the event. They called me up and they're like, we were not able to sell everything we thought we did. And we just negotiated down. And I brought 20 partners last minute, and I got them on stage, and I divided up everything. And, I didn't intend to make money, but we did, right? The goal was break even, but we did make money. And so it's just kind of thinking about those things. It's being agile. It's being able to understand the person you're talking to. Like, how do you make this a win for them while making it a win for you and the people that you're working for? And if you can go about that way, and you can be patient, and you can jump on things with little notice, I think that's how you do it.
Yeah. And there's some really great pieces, nuggets to grab onto there. And, as my listeners, as they listen to these founders that I interview, and they try to apply to themselves in their situation, what you're saying, and say, all right, well, how do I get myself in the room? I think the thing that I'd take away as a listener of that is, yes, there's salesmanship to it. There's negotiation, there's, being agile last minute. But I think for you in particular, what it sounds like is that it's also just you're a natural connector. And even if you're not a natural connector, even if you're not an extrovert, just making sure you're making strategic connections, that you're getting, FaceTime with the right people and cultivating relationships in the right ways, then you'd be the one that gets the call. Like when they don't sell enough in South by Southwest, they call you because the connection was made and you had that relationship with Jason.
And think about it this way, right? Like, what happens if you find somebody in there who's junior, but they're responsive to you because they're hungry to figure out themselves too? What happens if your actions make them the right person, right? Like if they don't have a podcast salesperson at a company, and I call up and I'm able to make that happen, I'm able to get this person to help me build something that works and that I can buy from them. And this person goes from a junior nobody at that company to now the podcast lead sales. And now you have a relationship there, and you say, hey, if you can keep the price low for me, I'll go introduce you to 100 people and I can help you price this so it sells, and I'll endorse it and all of that. And I think that that's the smart thing. And one thing that me and you've talked about a lot is like open mouths get fed. Like with you hosting on Megaphone and Spotify, like all the things that you've done for your podcast, like there have been a few times where I push you, I've just been like, just ask for more, because nobody's going to say to you, I've never experienced in business that when you ask for something, if you're polite about it, if you go about it the right way, nobody says like not only no, but literally lose my email, right? Like never contact me. I'm deleting your RSS feed, right? Like it doesn't happen, right? Like it is so difficult for people to be punitive, but sometimes people are just not thinking about things the way you are. So when you ask for exactly what you want, sometimes you give them the opportunity to tell you what they want, and you guys meet in the middle.
I think that's so good across any role that you have, any relationship you're cultivating, whether it's sales or direct outreach, anything, to the idea of giving people within their company professional equity they can spend with their leaders to say like, hey, I'm giving you this opportunity to make yourself look good, to make your company money. That's an awesome opportunity because then they're motivated and you're motivated, right, to get the deal done. So that's really awesome. We haven't talked about funding at all because I know you didn't take any investors. You said you didn't have a board, so you didn't take
nobody was
capital.
Interested in giving us
nobody's interested. So.
I'm happy to be candid with it. The last 2 years we've been around 1.7 million in revenue.
Okay.
I don't see any reason to like hide things. Thank you. It's wild with 4 people, right? We make great money. We reinvest it. I think we're closer to hitting 2 million this year. Nice. But like the reason it was stagnant is because we had we had $60K research project. And we have up to 10 people in it. And the previous year, we'd lost like 3 people. So that's what's that, $180,000, 3.5 people I think we lost. And it's $180,000. We recouped it in partnership, right? 60,000 versus 6K, right? Like we replaced it in partnership. And that's makes me happy because it made it wide. But today, like if somebody gave me $1 million, I don't know what I'd do with it. I think, we're not opposed to the idea of selling, but like I'm the product, Tom's the product, and I get 200 clients without a contract. So we'll see who's interested in that. But I think that like funding's so interesting. I think that so much of what I do is momentum and based there, and figuring out like what is the worst case scenario. Like Cannes Lion, $38,000 committed to this. I've never been. Do you know what I'm excited to get in Cannes? I'm excited to get heat stroke, because I'm incredibly sensitive to the sun. I don't drink alcohol at all. When everybody's too drunk to have a business conversation, I'm gonna be in my room playing Game Boy.
Right.
And so it's Father's Day weekend. I got a 3 and a 6-year-old. I'm thankful that I can lie to them about when Father's Day is.
Right.
$38,000, right? And I put the money down and then started selling it because I knew that these things, right? Like I know that either I'll lose all that money, but it'll be worthwhile and the momentum will catch up for it, or I'll have learnings on why nobody should go there, which I don't think will happen, and it'll eventually happen. Like it'll eventually work. Right now, I will at a minimum break even, if not create a profit off of it, because I price things at that $10,000, and there's FOMO and there's excitement and people are going and they need a home base. But yeah, funding's so interesting. The M&A and all of that stuff, I would love to learn more about it. Not because I really ever want to start another company again, but because I want to like give my partners advice, like these people who are looking to raise and how to go about it.
Yep, that makes total sense. Because my question around funding really for you was like, you haven't taken money, so how did you get the cash flow to support your growth as we discuss scaling? And it just sounds like you've just figured momentum is the word you keep using, which I love. I wrote it down. It's like you just keep it's almost like if you're walking and you lean really far forward, where like you would fall over if your feet don't catch up to you. And so you just keep like throwing yourself further forward, where it's like you're either going to fall on your face or your feet are going to catch up to you. And you just make the decisions you need to make sure your feet are walking fast enough to keep you upright.
Yeah. And if you're prepared for it, right, at some point you should fall on your face, or like you prepare for it. Because I think that the people who jump on those opportunities, like we went to Possible in Miami, right? An astounding event. I don't think you need a ticket. I think you can fly to Miami as cheap as possible. I think you can stay further out from the venue. I literally had a drink with randomly at the bar. I was ordering a lemonade, and the CMO of BMW stood next to me and asked me all about Sounds Profitable, right? Like this was an event that I had no intention of going to. And a friend was like, you should come, let's do a dinner. And I was like, yeah, done. And then I told everyone, I'm like, we're doing a dinner. and just started selling it. Just, I bought into it, I put the money down, I did it, and then started selling it. And it could have fallen short, but instead we had 22 brands show up to talk about audio, right? Everybody I met there was like, oh, I don't quite have a plan for audio. And I went back to all of my partners and I was like, you need to be here next year. So we're going to get a room block at this hotel down the street. Like, how do I make it easier for you? It feels like telling somebody, like, when they go to college, like, try every new opportunity, but it's like, that never ends, right? Like, I think when you can do that, cool things happen.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I love the term of momentum, the idea of momentum, the whole ethos behind that is really cool. And you've personified it really well in your company. Let's talk about a couple just like really practical, tangible, applicable things that founders can grab based on your experience. Let's jump back to hiring. What advice do you have for other founders who haven't begun that process, who are at that nexus in their company of like, man, do we get more help or not? I mean, what are some things that you learned in that process that you could share?
I think that if I wanted to hire correctly, I would need to pause what I'm doing for several months and really think about it. I would need to completely empty my plate, stop all momentum. And like, for me, that's tough. I think that, when I think about the industry, like, I could take maybe 2 weeks to 4 weeks off in the summer. I tend to, after the first week in December, shut things down until the first week of January. And those are always my idealistic. I turn off my auto calendar or anything like that. But then things pop up. Someone has a last minute need. I have 200 people who have my like 200 companies, multiple people for each of these companies who have my cell phone number, who are just like, hey, I know we used our 30 minutes this month, but like, I need help. And I don't have to ask a board. I don't have to nickel and dime. I just say, I'm here. I got it. Cool. I just put my kids to bed. Instead of playing a video game, let's hop on a phone call, right? Like, because it's cool, because I know that what I'm doing has positive impact on all these people's lives, not just their careers. And that's great. I think to hire correctly, you either need someone you trust who can make that their primary focus. In the same way, I believe that if you're going to raise funds, that becomes that person's job. And I think the biggest thing is just hire fast. Hire slow and fire fast? No, I think hire fast, fire fast is. I like. We brought somebody on. It was a great pitch. It hit everything we wanted. We got the right endorsements. We brought her on as the same salary as us. We gave it a shot for 3 months. It didn't work. We ended it. Like, I'm not mad about it, right? But I think the biggest thing as an entrepreneur, like, until Tom came on board, the way I had a CPA who helped at the end of the year, but it was just like, the first month was just like, pay all the bills, empty the business bank account into my personal bank account as my salary, do that 2 months in a row. And then the third month was use the entire revenue for estimated taxes, right? Like, and I made great money, but like, I think I halved my salary to bring Tom on. But then we very quickly got back up to around that range or more. And I think you need to determine what matters right now to you. Is it cash in your pocket? Or is it the long-term aspect of it? Like, where can you sacrifice? And it's okay to say you can't, right? Sure. And I think calling things a lifestyle company because it's under a few $1 million or whatnot there is really insulting on these things, because like, a few $1 million is nothing to sneeze about. Like, there are notable podcast companies that we do as much or more revenue than that have raised money. So it's like, I don't know, why are we downplaying it?
Yeah, for sure. And companies, I mean, 3 million is one thing when you have 30 employees. It's another when you have 2 to 5 to 7. I mean, that's, it can be a big deal. Yeah, I love that. I love that in your, I like hire fast, fire fast. I think that can be really applicable. I also love your thought of allocate your time, effort, attention appropriately. Like, give hiring the weight that it needs when appropriate. I mean, there's times you hire fast, fire fast. There's other times where you need to really nail a role, and you know your calendar, your bandwidth, and you have to allocate the time accordingly. And some people are able to do that, some people aren't. You have to bring somebody on just to have that be their job. But hiring is just an important piece, and a lot of founders are at that point where they're bringing on help. Let's talk about the operation of your business. If you think about kind of a gospel truth that you consistently go back to, Bryan, of like, this just consistently proves itself out as a self-evident truth over and over, what would one of those things be?
When you're asking someone to pay you, there should be no higher level of customer service, understanding, and sympathy on it. Like, because we're so small in it, we either allow people to pay for a full year however they want. If someone wants me to like show up at their house and they're gonna give me a sock full of nickels at $6,000, like you got it, man. I'm here for it. But if not, I need it to be through Stripe monthly. And right now that pretty much means credit or debit card. I think there's like an auto draft we're gonna figure out, but like you make that as easy as possible. But if there's someone you want and they need something different and it's difficult, right? Like one of our bigger advertiser clients can't do that. And they want it a very specific way and it needs an IO and all those things. And as we were onboarding Lauren to figure that out, like I half passed this thing off that I was already messing up and that Lauren messed up a little bit. We just bought the woman at the company like a gift package. We were like, thanks for putting up with us. Like you're in the accounts receivable department. Like you could choose to sit on this invoice and make my life hell. And you've given me your time to help make sure we get paid. Like every little person in that process on your path to get paid deserves your attention, your thanks, your gratitude. And not enough people get thanked. That's like, I think the best job I ever had was waiting tables because it just teaches you about doing laps and thinking about things. And when you see the drink empty on one table, you remember the drink empty on table 4, or food comes out for one table and you realize it's not like, how do you just play off of that? Again, momentum and all of that, but it's customer service. That's when people that we're working with are asking about who to pick, I say it's price, because everybody has to focus on that. It's customer service, and then it's technology. That's the sad truth. Good customer service can beat tech or value or service, like anything else, but.
Sure can. Yeah, sure can. And I love that. Just treating people well. That can look like a whole host of different things for different companies, but everybody on that path, specifically, you niched it down to like, and there's other places this is applicable, but I love how you talked about is as people are paying you, everyone in that process needs to be taken care of, empathized with. And I love that. Treating people well is the right way to do business. It's good. It makes good moral sense, and it makes good business sense to take care of the people that are paying you. All right, let's move into a couple closing questions here. When you speak with other entrepreneurs or other people that are looking to start their own company, that could even be someone who's looking to quit their 9 to 5 and start their podcast full time, do their thing full time as you're in that industry. What's a question that you get asked most by these new founders, entrepreneurs, and what question do you believe they should be asking but aren't?
Asked most is, how do you plan financially? And I think that what you need to look at it is the December of ideally that year, or no less than 6 months away. So, right, like if it's later in the later half of the year, you think of the December of that, you say like, how do I have, first off, do you have enough money if you make no money until that December to support your lifestyle at a pared down version and be happy? That's the first thing. And then the second is, how do you get to that number as fast as possible, right? Like every time you do a deal or something like that, like my hourly rate started at $175 an hour. And like when we do consulting, I don't tend to like to do consulting projects for people, because I'd rather like connect them with other people or do all that, like have it fit our flow. We're almost $1,000 an hour at this point. Just because you build something at that price to get to that number, your December number, to put the money back in the bank, doesn't mean that the next deal can't be a higher rate. Doesn't mean you can't come revisit that deal after you've got enough revenue that you want to drop that. So it's get to that number, and that number can be deferred taxes too. Like delay your taxes and figure all that out. It's a 5% interest rate over, and you can push it out over 5 years. Like figure out how you get as much breathing room as possible, and figure out how you get that number, and then from that number, figure out how you find happiness.
Awesome.
And then for what they don't ask,
blind spots.
what you gonna give up? Like, my stepdad has retired 3 times. He's in his late 60s. He keeps failing to retire. He's a man who walks around with a Bluetooth Jabra headset, like one of those.
Oh yeah.
His mouth, nonstop, just always, right? The dude sleeps 4 hours. He loves what he does. He sets his value off of work, and I do too, right? I will. I'm so happy on West Coast time now because I tend to work East Coast hours, and then I go spend a bunch of time with the kids, and I put the kids down and I open my email. Man, I want to play video games, or I want to read this book or whatnot. And if my wife doesn't specifically ask for my time, it's so much easier to write an email. It's so much easier to help a client out or anything like that than it is to enjoy any other aspect of my life. And most people in your life are not going to understand that. And you shouldn't expect them to. Like this isn't what the world should be, right? Like, I think everybody should have a little bit more breathing room. We should be supporting more people like that. But the truth of it is if you want to make money, if you want to provide for your family, if you want to feel that success, then it becomes a hobby or a compulsion or an addiction. And you need to be okay with that, because a 9 to 5 that you can shut your computer and turn off your work phone and go home is really powerful, though not as secure.
All right, so lastly, I got one more for you. What's one tool, quote, or book, something that you found indispensable to either your personal or professional progress?
Well, let's do tool. Most of my work is email. And so Superhuman has been phenomenal. Now, there are other apps that are challenging it now. I recommend the business plan, the $30 a month. It absolutely saves me multiple hours per week.
Dude, how do you do the no support for multiple accounts?
Like, I think they have multiple accounts now.
No, man. Well, they do, but not a single view for a single inbox. I mean, I have like these couple companies and I have different communications for each of them, and I have to go to each individual inbox, and I want to be a Superhuman guy so bad because everybody loves it. And I want the consolidated view. So you just basically, you run everything out of your Sounds Profitable email.
Oh my God, I order delivery food on there. I buy Kickstarter games on there. Like at this point, my personal email has an auto response, and my phone, if you get to the voicemail, it says this is not a checked voicemail. Like, send a text message, send an email. But yeah, there's another one. I'll send you it because I would love to have you check out if it's as good. But yeah, I think the tool, like, you have to figure out what your primary work is, and you have to figure out the right tool for that. And like, no sunk cost fallacy. Like, we use MailChimp to start for our emails, and then we didn't like it, so we switched to Beehive, and then we wanted to get into HubSpot, so we did, right? Like, you move on, you accept there's loss, and you buy into it. And it's also okay to move back, right?
Totally.
Like, no one's like grading you on this stuff. The only thing that's bad is like if you see the signs and it's not working. So I'd say Superhuman is the main tool. I think maybe therapy. I think that might be another one that I highly recommend. Talk to someone who's not going to judge you too much and is going to challenge you a little bit more there. I wish I could say I read more business books. I think on my end, I think prioritize entertainment. I think it's so easy for your life to become business. And that's not interesting. Like, like, then sometimes you go out and you meet these people who are not related to that, and you can't have a human conversation with them. So yeah, I think prioritize entertainment. Find that weird thing that you're always going to do and you're always going to put first, and don't let it slip.
Yeah, and it fills your cup, because if you want to be effective in your business, you need to be filled in your life and in your personal life, things you're interested in on a personal level. Awesome. Bryan, this is great. As always, your brain runs a million miles an hour, and I love trying to keep up with it. You had a ton of really great stuff you provided here, really practical stuff that I think people can take away. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. This was fun.
Thank you. I had a blast.
All right. Thanks, man. You take care. If you guys enjoyed the show, leaving a review is the best way to help others find it. Second only to sharing it directly with your friends and family. Thanks so much for helping get the word out. Hit me up at brandon@readysetstartuppod.com if you have additional questions about a topic I covered, have suggestions about another area you'd like to see me dig into, or just want to say hi. Please reach out. I'd love to get in touch. Keep imagining, keep creating, keep inspiring your spheres of influence with what you're passionate about. The world may just need that dream that's in your head. See you next time.